Hey everyone, Seth here. You may not know this, and how would you to be honest, but I am a Skarner main.
What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity back bumper. What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity back bumper. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumper. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumper. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumper. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumper. Bump to the boot to the boot to the boot boot. Bump to the bass to the bass bass. Bump to the boot to the boot to the boot. Bump to the bass to the bass bass.
Skarner is an interesting champion. His ability scalings are very high. His teamfighting and utility are through the roof. According to Freak, and I quote, "If you are a Skarner main, you are playing one of like the 10 best junglers in the game right now. Actually, it's probably 5 best junglers in the game right now. And yet, whenever you look at any data aggregation websites, Skarner is often ranked as one of the worst junglers in the game. With a low play rate that's basically just his mains, and a subpar win rate hovering around 49 to 50%, many players are considering his current iteration a failure. How can a champion be both so strong and so weak at the same time? The truth becomes clearer when you take the time to learn and play Skarner, and realize that the both sides are right, albeit in different areas. In this video I want to take a look at Skarner from a perspective of a champion main, highlighting tangible strengths and weaknesses, providing insights into gameplay patterns, and showcasing possible solutions to issues presented by Skarner's design. This video assumes you know what Skarner from League of Legends does, and as such will mostly focus on more advanced and technical aspects of the kit. Before we begin, I would like to fully introduce my gaming credentials and clarify some terminology I'm going to use. Feel free to skip to the next chapter if you're not interested in that. I've been a casual League player from 2011. I don't tend to play ranked a lot, but my peak rank in the recent seasons has been Emerald 1 in Season 2 of 2024. Even though I'm more of a field player, playing every role and champion under the sun, I've gravitated mostly towards Skarner as my top mastery points champion. My current master is 157k, and it's going to increase even further with time. Outside of playing League, I've been working on fun designs and reworks for champions for the past 10 or even more years, and sharing them with people on forums and discussion boards. Even though these numbers may not be that impressive, especially for hardcore players, I believe their combination creates a unique outlook on the matter at hand. For the terminology, the most important phase in the entire video is gameplay feel. It's a rather loose term that tends to describe what a player feels when experiencing a gameplay element, such as champion kits, abilities, items. Since Skarner is a surprisingly complex champion with a wide range of different emotional outputs, I want to focus more on the gameplay aspects of the kit and how they interact with the game systems Skarner is in. As such, I'm not going to talk about lore, character design, or non-gameplay sounds and VFX like jokes, sounds, non-combat VOs. With the housekeeping out of the way, let's charge into the breakdown. As a whole, Skarner has a high floor, high skill ceiling kit with a lot of different tricks and optimizations. Even though his abilities are pretty easy to understand and pick up, Skarner is a pretty difficult champion to perform well on. This is due to huge backloading of his damage and crowd control into rewards for properly mastering the intricacies of his abilities and kit interactions. What also does not help is that a lot of these interactions are not that easy to intuit for new and even some experienced players. As such, this section will go through each ability both one by one and in the wider scope of Skarner's kit. While it's pretty difficult to make a free hit damage over time passive feel outright bad, Skarner's comes very close. Besides a less than stellar visual clarity on the vibration effect, the main issue comes from how it is applied. Rather than stacking on every attack and ability, it is locked behind auto attacks, Q, and R. This can lead to some feel bad moments where your passive will proc at the end of the fight or /gank rather than during it, losing Skarner a good chunk of DPS. While Skarner is not unique in limiting what a champion's passive can proc on, I believe this separation adds unnecessary skill expression in a place where it's completely unneeded, and seems more like a leftover design from the time where the passive was way stronger in damage. In my opinion, Skarner's passive should apply on every ability that affects enemies in any way, even if it deals less damage as a result. and I believe this would increase player satisfaction and reward Skarner's creative ability usage. Skarner's Q is probably one of his best abilities in the kit. With a monstrous set of max health and bonus AD ratios, a good chunk of target's max HP damage on the final hit/throw, and great animations and impact VFX, it feels very satisfying to use. However, in a typical Skarner fashion, this ability recently received a nerf that made it feel worse in gameplay, and that is the cooldown start. Before patch 25.22, the ability started its cooldown when you first picked up the rock. Now, it resets its cooldown each time you use any of the empowered attacks or throw the boulder. This seemingly innocuous change led to a complete shift in how the ability should be used. Let's demonstrate it with an example. Let's say you're grouping up for an objective fight. You spot an enemy teetering at the edge of your Q range. You pick up your rock in preparation of a fight, but the enemy keeps their distance as the duration of your Q runs out. Should you A. Let the ability fully expire, or B. Throw the rock in their direction for a small chance of hitting them? And the correct answer is A. By not throwing the rock, you can pick it up instantly after it expires. Throwing the rock, you risk missing the target and putting the ability on an actual cooldown. This creates an interesting gameplay pattern where you can just have your rock up almost permanently, creating infinite pressure when utilized properly. Personally, I would prefer to have this change reverted in exchange for less health damage, as this would provide the satisfaction for actually using the ability rather than just picking it up and holding it forever. While Shattered Earth is one of the best of Skarner's abilities, Seismic Bastion is definitely the worst. While it does have a good visual impact, the ability itself is horrendous to use. Due to the prevalence of WMAX Skarner during the rework's release, the ability has been completely gutted. All of its numbers are pitifully low, while its cost and cooldown make it actively detrimental for Skarner to use. I want to especially highlight the mana cost. 60 mana on rank 1 makes lane Skarner run out of mana after barely 5 casts in the early game, and this is when not using any other abilities. And a mediocre mana growth per level does not help in the long run. I believe that the core of the issues with Bastion do not lie in the numbers, however, but rather in the fact that it does everything. It's an AoE slow with AoE damage and a max health shield to boot. If one of these elements would be cut out of the ability, and in exchange the mana cost and the other two aspects buffed, Seismic Bastion would end up feeling good to use again. Personally, I think that cutting damage out would allow for a better ability tuning while preventing the return of WMAX Skarner. Ixtal's impact surprisingly parallels Skarner's overall state. Despite being a very strong ability in theory, in practice it's his second worst. This stance may be a bit controversial, as the ability has a lot of raw power, however its mastery curve is not proportional to the rewards for good usage. Because of the complex nature of how it functions, the problems it suffers are also quite complicated and layered on top of each other. To make it easier to digest, I've decided to highlight different aspects of the ability that contribute to the overall dissatisfaction with the kit. Movement speed. Ixtal's impact is the only charge type skill in League to move at a static speed, instantly eliminating a lot of benefits Skarner could have from runes and items. This restrictiveness extends into the numbers themselves. Skarner starts charging from 150 movement speed, and it increases by 100 every 0.25 seconds, up to 950 ms cap. Skarner's base movement speed is 335, with boots it's 360, and 380 with tier 2, and half of those is 167, 180 and 190 respectively, rounded down. This means that it takes Skarner half a second to get to a speed 10 lower than with tier 1 boots, and an additional 1.5 seconds to get to full speed. Drag and Wall Slam. Due to the drag time being doubled when attaching to a target earlier in the charge, the ability performs better when used point blank as if it was weaker PoE. This is due to the slam reward being so high. Between high damage, solid cooldown reduction, and a decently long stun that sets up the ult, risking a miss or a shorter drag duration is suboptimal in all but the most specific cases like tower dives or jungle fights. Wall movement. While Skarner's E allows for a movement through walls, making the ability a powerful mobility tool, the combination of a subpar duration, on which I will expand soon, and slow movement speed make it wholly impractical as a creative ganking tool. Charging through smaller walls can take almost a second off, while larger walls eats almost 75% of the ability's duration. This makes getting a good angle for wall slam nearly impossible in those situations, losing a good amount of crowd control and damage, as I mentioned in the previous point. Duration. Tying the ability together is a short duration that leaves a lot to be desired if we take into consideration everything we talked so far. With the ability lasting only 2.75 seconds, a lot of the current design wastes precious duration. Between the slow movement build-up, the drag duration being set on champion collision, and the wall movement eating up most of the time of the charge, the ability's actual time to use is very short and unwieldy. While I personally don't mind high skill floor abilities, the dissonance between optimal and typical usage leads to a lot more frustration than satisfaction. The complexity and massive power present in various aspects of this ability make it difficult to propose balance changes. Outright buffing any of the pain points of the ability could lead into Impact becoming one of the best 8 skills in the game. Buffing the damage again solves none of the issues I've presented and even exacerbates the already existing problems. As such, I personally see 2 ways in which to make Ixtal's Impact feel better to use. 1. Keep the ability in the same slot, but completely rework its usage and utility. Or 2. Swap the ability with Impale, allowing the ability to have proper power budgeting, allowing for buffs and proper rebalances. I will showcase the ideas for both when presenting the final versions of the kit. Impale is the second best ability in Skarner's kit. It deals solid damage, it applies a long suppression, it's satisfying to hit visually, and it gives a solid amount of movement speed, allowing Skarner to reposition the grabbed targets. However, because of how powerful the ability is in coordinated play, it was nerfed twice. First by removing the displacement immunity, then by reverting the buff to the ability's cast time. This leaves Skarner with a monstrously long 0.75 cast time that is very easy to dodge by simply walking out of the zone, unless the target is affected by crowd control. Just like with Ixtal's Impact, buffing Impale's main pain point, cast time, has a good chance of returning the pro play presence, especially when combined with already high health damage Skarner currently has. Depending on how the previously mentioned Ixtal's Impact changes are implemented, I see 2 possible options here as well. 1. Keeping Impale as ultimate and increasing the size of area in length, then keeping the rest of the ability the same. 2. Moving Impale to a basic ability slot and changing it to suppress only a single target for a way shorter amount of time in a smaller area, but with a faster cast time. These changes would increase the general satisfaction from ability usage and should be safe enough to prevent any pro skew. Now that I've gone through the kits and some of my ideas of possible improvements, I want to present 2 complete versions of Skarner that I feel like could improve gameplay satisfaction and bring something unique to the champion. For both versions, passive, Q and W are changed in the same way, so let's start with those. Threads of Vibration passively now applies on all attacks and abilities. Damage over the duration has been reduced by 1%. Shattered Earth cooldown now starts on rock pickup rather than resetting on ability hit. It is now 12 to 6 seconds, which is a 1 second buff compared to the version before patch 2522. Bonus health ratio has been reduced by 1%, final hit and the throw bonus health target damage has been reduced by 1%, Upheaval slow has been reduced from 40 to 30. Seismic Bastion no longer deals damage. Slow now increases with rank, from flat 20 to 40%. Shield now increases with rank, from 8% to 8 to 12%. Now shield has an AP scaling, starting with 0 bonus shield and scaling with 60% of AP. Ability range has been reduced by 200. Cost reduced from 60 to 80 to 40 to 60. The goal of these changes is to shift Skarner's power less from dealing high damage at specific intervals and more into consistent damage over time. The improved survivability on W also helps in extended skirmishes. Now the main difference between both kits lies in how Ixtal's Impact and Impale would be positioned in the newly updated kit. The first version I want to present keeps the current ability order. Instead of damage and hard crowd control, this kit focuses on utility, extended fights, and setting up ganks with newly rebalanced E. Obviously, numbers are not final in his kit, however their design and intent are. Ixtal's Impact. The goal of these changes is to transform the ability into an actually potent ganking tool, rather than a tricky to balance crowd control ability. Even though this spell has become quite iconic in his current kit, I personally believe that removing both drag and wall stun would ultimately benefit its rather rigid power budget. Skarner can no longer grab enemies during the charge and slam them into the wall. Passing through enemies causes Skarner to trample them, dealing physical damage, slowing and reducing their armor and magic resistance, scaling with ability duration, once per cast per enemy. Movement speed, instead of 150 plus 100 to 950 cap, you now get 70% total movement speed, plus 20% every 1/4 of a second, up to 250% movement speed cap. This correlates around to 835 with no boots, 900 tier 1, 950 tier 2, 975 tier 3, and 1000 tier 4. Duration has been increased from 275 to 4 to 8 seconds, scaling with ability rank. Skarner can now use Shattered Earth, not Upheaval, and Seismic Bastion during the charge. Pass range, check in range of 200 units. The turn rate has been improved with a faster increase over time, rather than resetting on direction change, it now simply decreases sharply. Mana cost has been reduced from 50 to 70 on ranks to 50 at all ranks, and cooldown has been reduced from 20 to 18 to 17 to 13. Retaining Impale as Skarner's ultimate presents an interesting design challenge. While there are many ways of approaching the changes for this ability, for this version of the kit I've decided to simply tune the ability rather than do any wide sweeping changes. There is an argument for making Impale single target, but I want to explore that possibility in the second kit rather than this one. Now deals damage both at the start and end of suppression. Each hit applies passive. Now deals both physical and magic damage. Damage has been rescaled, dealing half of its total damage on hit as physical damage with bonus AD scaling, and half of it on duration and as magic damage with AP scaling. Ability AoE has its range increased by 25 units, width remains the same. If at least a single champion is fully suppressed by the entire duration of the ability, Skarner refreshes the movement speed buff for 1.5 seconds. This version of the kit allows Skarner to utilize movement speed in new and exciting ways. His catch-up and sticking power is greatly increased in exchange for removing hard CC from basic abilities, which I think is a pretty fair trade. While Impale is still a bit hard to hit, landing the ultimate should be a bit easier in general due to the amount of different slows in his kit. The second version I want to present elevates Ixtal's impact to an ultimate ability and moves Impale to a basic ability, similarly to how Naafiri's rework was handled, allowing for both skills to be adjusted in new and interesting ways. Both spells now deal damage twice to allow threads of vibrations to trigger easier, in exchange for some of its damage over time. While these numbers are not final, the gameplay idea behind them is. Impale. Impale receives a massive sweep of changes to adjust it to a basic ability slot, returning the old double hit to benefit more from the updated passive, easier to hit in a smaller area with less reward on its own, but fitting better into the overall kit. It's a basic skill instead of an ultimate, you can now only have one target rather than 3. The ability's range has been reduced by 225 units, now deals damage twice, physical on hit, magic on duration end. Damage has been rescaled, hitting only jungle monsters with Impale reduces its cooldown by 35%. Suppress duration has been reduced from 1.5 to 0.75, no longer grants movement speed upon impaling a target, cast time has been decreased from 0.75 to 0.65, mana cost has been rescaled, and finally, cooldown has been rescaled. Ixtal's impact. Ixtal's impact receives a massive sweep of changes to adjust it for an ultimate ability slot. More power with better handling to increase satisfaction, shifting some teamfight power from pre-update Impale here. Now it's an ultimate instead of basic ability, resulting in the following changes. Crowd control does not stop Ixtal's impact, but will still be buffered to Skarner. Think Vi ultimate, so if you stun Skarner during the duration and the duration runs out, Skarner will be stunned. Targets cleansing the suppression during the charge do not end the ability for Skarner. Now has displacement immunity. Maximum targets grabbed from 1 to 3 can no longer grab large monsters. Using Ixtal's impact during Impale ends Impale, instantly attaching the target to Skarner, applying impact's attached damage and Impale's duration end damage, and setting the ultimate's duration to 1.5 seconds. This can be done in any direction, not only in the Impale's direction. Speed formula has been adjusted, just like in the first kit, no longer grants movement speed upon grabbing a target. Ability duration went from 2.75 to 7 seconds. Duration on grab has been increased, now always is set to 1.5 seconds, resetting once on a subsequent grab. Grabbing a target now deals magic damage to the enemy. The wall stun no longer reduces the ability's cooldown. The wall stun duration has been increased to 1.5, wall slam damage has been rebalanced. Grab radius has been increased from 160 to 250. Steering speed has been rebalanced, now increases over time faster and decreases when changing directions rapidly. Cost has been rebalanced to fit an ultimate ability. Cooldown has been rebalanced to fit an ultimate ability, 150 to 90 seconds. Shifting teamfight power from a slow AoE suppress to a movement-based charge creates interesting gameplay decisions while giving enemies multiple avenues to interact with the ability. This shift also provides an interesting idea of returning the kidnapping playstyle from old Skarner in a new and interesting way, while returning some outputs from his current kit. Skarner is a champion unlike any other. His story is full of turbulence, obsolescence and difficulties. He has a dedicated player base who plays him in a myriad of different and unique ways. I hope that by showcasing some of his issues and presenting possible solutions to his blights, he can one day find some more popularity and a more balanced state than now. And until then, I will still be playing him, holding rocks with my Q, not pressing W, charging point blank with E, and missing my every ultimate because they walked out of range. Thank you all for reaching the end of this video. Special thanks to my friends Maya and Mika for providing rating and style advice. I'm still not playing Overwatch even with you. Huge shoutouts to TB Sky and Discord community for providing feedback and suggestions on the initial version of the script. You know who you all are, rock on fellas. A warm thank you to every other Skarner player out there. There is at least a dozen of us. And this video has been made without any use of AI at any point of the process. Fuck AI. See you whenever my stupid ass decides to make another one of these in the next few months, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna go play Deadlock, bye!